What's everybody? Welcome back to Tuesday's edition of Crossover Athlete Insights. Today I'm riding solo. Joey is over in France. Crossover Athlete Insights gone international. He may be bringing you a little content from the Eiffel Tower. We'll see. Hopefully he does. So Tuesday's edition, we're going to go over a quick little recap of Sunday's games, little waiver wire guys, some guys to buy low, looking into next week here. Pretty interesting Sunday. It felt like a lot of the big guys didn't really do much. And there's some interesting guys that we can look to pick up on the waiver wire this week to help your team out. We're starting to get that point in the season where it's make or break time. A lot of guys sitting at, middle of the pack, 4-5, 5-4, and even some guys lower than that that have a chance to make a playoff run here with some guys coming back, looking at Alvin Kamara coming back off suspension. You guys that struggled early on and now have a chance. So we're going to look into that here. First off, I actually wanted to get into some of our picks from last weekend. So if you tuned in and stayed for the whole podcast Tuesday, you would have made a lot of money. Joey was absolutely on point with his spread picks. And we did that Tuesday session. And I just want to hammer this really quick. Getting into it, taking the early lines in the NFL is so much value because they haven't been able to work out up or down in a certain direction. So we'll get into it here. The ones that Joey's missed, so he only missed two out of the whole slate. It's absolutely insane. So he missed two out of the whole slate, pushed on one, and the two that he missed was before Dobbs got traded. So he had Cardinals +7. That was one of the losses. So kind of an asterisk there. And then he also had the Rams, what was it, +3 against the Packers. But that was before Stafford was ruled out too. So let me take a look here. I'm going to read off what he had. I mean, it was nuts. Okay, so we're going to start off with Thursday's game. So for you guys that got in on Tuesday with us, we took Steelers -3 cash, Chiefs -2.5 cash over in Germany there. Cards +7, that was the loss, but he didn't know Clayton Tune was going to be playing. He thought Dobbs was still at quarterback. So asterisk, number one. Ravens -5.5, easy cash, beat the crap out of the Seahawks. Vikings +5, ends up, there's where Josh Dobbs went. That was a win. Saints -7 pushed against the Bears. Seven's a big line. And early on there, he took the 7. So we got the push. Not a loss. Get your money back. Commanders +3 cash over the Patriots. He had Rams +3, like I said. That was before Stafford had been ruled out. Bucks +2.5. They did cover even with that late touchdown throw from CJ Stroud. What a monster. We'll get into his performance here later on. Colts +3. They won. Eagles -3. They won. That was a close cover. That's a game of inches. I'm actually going to show a picture here. Take a look. This is how close the Cowboys were to not only covering but winning this game. Game of inches, they always say it, proved to be true in a game of two powerhouses between the Cowboys and Eagles. Raiders -3, easy cash. Danny Dimes goes down with probably an ACL, MCL injury. We'll see later on this week. As of right now, though, it has not been announced. After that, Bengals -3, they cash. Don't let Joey B get hot. That Bengals team is dangerous if he's getting going like this. And he does have Chargers -3 for tonight. I'm recording this Monday before the game. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. But unbelievable performance. I mean, two losses, and the two losses both had asterisks because they had a whole different quarterback playing, so the line would have changed completely by that time. I don't know what it ended up being, but I know that day is just insane. So if you stuck around, you made money, and it's going to be like that every single week. I mean, every week we come out with something that hits. We're going to have a lot of clips. Follow us on TikTok at Crossover Athlete Insight. We got all our clips over there to show you what you missed, or you just want to watch a shortened version of it. We got you covered on the most important parts of the podcast. So let's just get right on into it after getting through that. What a day by Joey, though. I mean, insane. Hammer early on in the week. That's where you get your best lines. So we're going to get right into Sunday's games. So I want to talk about this guy really quick. I had him as my RB1 if you watch Saturday's podcast. Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams is back off of IR. Taysom Hill's getting a lot of rushes. It looks like I thought he was no doubt RB1 with the pass catching ability and the targets that he's getting there. Tough day though. Didn't get a lot of touches. Let me just pull up it really quick. So he only played like 50% of snaps, and that's kind of worrisome. And it doesn't it doesn't make much sense. So when he first got back, he was over 75%, and that's continued to decline with the role of Jamal Williams growing and Taysom Hill growing largely over the past couple weeks here. And that is just something to monitor for you, Kamara guys. Could be somebody to sell extremely high if you are in the scenario for that. If you have other running backs to be able to play, I still think he's super dangerous, like in PPR leagues, because the point per catch, he's had 2 games over 10 catches this year already, and that's got major play. Joey would probably absolutely hate that I'm saying this right now, but it's just something to monitor. And so less than 50% of the snaps for the first time since 2020. So not saying sell, no dumpster fire on Kamara, but something to watch. The growing roles of Jamal Williams and Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill will get touched on here later on. So continuing the recap here, we're going to also look at that Ravens Seahawks game because we touched on the addition of Zach Charbonnet last week in Tuesday's waiver wire session. I still think he's in that boat. He's in my top 5 this week because he has taken every single 2-minute drill and third down snap from this week. So Kenneth Walker, great on early down, still controlling the early down rushing game. But if the Seahawks are down, there's not much value to be had there. They were winning a lot of games early on, lost a few here, and it's definitely hurt Kenneth Walker's fantasy production. So I'm going to pull that up really quick. We're going to look at the snap counts here. So snap counts here is actually kind of insane. So this is why Charbonnet's such a good pickup here because he's great handcuff. First off, if anything happens to Kenneth, he's going to dominate all snaps. It feels that way because no other running back got a touch or got a snap in this game between Charbonnet and Walker. So due to the game script here, Seahawks down all game. Charbonnet actually outsnapped Walker for the first time all year, 27 snaps, 24 snaps. Didn't get as many carries, but ran 4 more routes. Actually ended up getting 1 less target, but he's in those pass catching role in the 2-minute drill on third down, where he's going to get those targets eventually here. So Zach Charbonnet, somebody to look forward to on Tuesday's waiver pickup after Monday night's game here. Yeah. So the Browns on the Cardinals here. Just a quick little touch. Deshaun Watson finally comes back. We hated on Deshaun with Amari Cooper, but it looks like they finally got a rhythm going. Amari Cooper led the team in snaps, or led the wide receivers in snaps, led them in routes run, and second the targets only to Njoku. But finally, 5 targets, 5 catches, 139 yards, and a touchdown. Maybe they can get some chemistry brewing. Hopefully Deshaun can be himself, but that's a terrible Cardinals defense or just team in general. So I'm not going to buy it quite yet. I would continue to hold off. Not hold off, but continue to be cautious playing Amari Cooper just because Deshaun has not quite looked like himself still. I don't know if he'll ever get back to that, but we'll see. So into the crapshoot that is, or the plague, as Joey would refer to it, that is the Cleveland Browns backfield really quick. Jerome Ford back, practice all week, 47 snaps to Kareem Hunt's 21, 20 carries to Kareem Hunt's 14, 20 routes run to Kareem Hunt's 6, and 7 targets to Kareem Hunt's 1. Jerome Ford's back in the leader of the backfield. Nobody else is really playable. Kareem Hunt, valuable handcuff. And that's really there. That's all there is to say about that one. Let's see here. Yeah, so this one actually kind of we touched on Aaron Jones on Saturday as well. So he actually finally looked healthy again for the first time. He had a great showing. Um, the hamstring injury Joey referred to, the soft tissue stuff is super tough to come back from, or it just kind of lingers. And it's been a couple weeks of him playing. He finally got over 50% snaps, and it looks promising because he's an explosive guy. And if that hamstring's not good, then he's not good. So outsnap Dylan by 12 snaps, 41-29. 16 routes run, 5 targets, and 21 carries. So that's showing right there that he is the guy in Green Bay again. He's healthy if he's getting that amount of touches and that amount of volume. Play him with no regard. he's pretty much matchup proof with that volume. And he's explosive as can be. He's going to break one. So week one, I mean, Jordan Love was just dumping passes down to Aaron Jones, and he was just taking him 50 yards to the house. He's that type of player. So with that volume back, you have to play him. He's got to be in every lineup, even only at just above 50% snap count. And then I know Ripien's playing quarterback, but like Cooper Cup owners have to be kind of discouraged at this point. He had the great 2 weeks to start the season or to start his season, and it's just been a decline from there on out. But the numbers are still there. Like he's leading the team in snaps. He outsnapped Puka. He had the same amount of routes run as Puka, so he was pass or run blocking a couple more times than him. One less target than him, and one less target than that. Well, I know it's Ripien playing quarterback, so you can't take it. You got to take it with a grain of salt here. But only a couple catches on 6 targets. It's definitely not what you drafted him for. So it's just tough to see. He's so good, and it's gonna come, I think. I mean, could be a potential buy low candidate at this point, 3 straight down weeks. We'll touch into some buy lows as we go. Could be on the radar there. So Cooper Cup guys, maybe he'll I mean, be tough to sell him at this point and knowing what he's done in the past. This one's gotta be talked about. What about that Buccaneers Texans game though? CJ Stroud might with the best rookie quarterback performance of all time. 475 touchdowns, game-winning touchdown to Tank Dell. Also a guy that if he's not rostered in your league, I think he's around 70, 60, 70, 80% roster. He's got to be rostered everywhere. Somebody that you can actually go out and get at this point. Tank Dell leading the team in snaps. Week 2 after coming back from his concussion, led the team in routes run, led the team in targets, only one more than Schultz, but he had 11 targets. He's getting double-digit targets, 2 touchdowns on the day as well. So, absolutely monster game by him, monster game by Stroud. I had Stroud in my top 10 quarterbacks. I believe I had him at 7 or 8. And man, he should have been higher than that, apparently. That's a good Buccaneers defense that they picked apart, too. That secondary is pretty solid. So, it's Texans fans, you finally found your guy. Panthers fans taking Bryce Young, he got to be crying a little bit on the inside. He doesn't seem like it. 2 pick sixes on the day compared to what a performance by CJ Stroud today. And we talked about it too. That matchup for Bryce Young and the Panthers, the Colts have the worst secondary in football. The worst. And you're throwing 2 pick sixes. I mean, what are we doing? Kenny Moore with the pick six. He had a great jump of the route on an out route. And Thielen didn't do much. Thielen was one of the guys that we talked about last week because we love the matchup, and he's been a target volume machine and just couldn't get it done. Or Bryce just couldn't get it done. Kind of worrisome for Carolina fans. It's only his rookie year. You usually see a big jump in year 2. Gotta hope for that because you are not seeing it right now. So on the next game here, we're going to talk about the Patriots Commanders game here really quick. So Sam Howell with another great performance against a really not a tough Patriots defense, but you always expect something out of Belichick, right? Especially against those younger guys like Howell himself. But he looks great. The enemy's got him rolling. He was saying Brissett helps him a lot on it. Brissett's a great veteran guy to have in the clubhouse, and he looks really good. And they may have found their guy in Washington because it appears that way from my side. So I'm going to pull up at what he did here. Threw a nice little deep ball to Jahan Dotson, some guy we weren't too high on last week, but he had a good numbers. He finally got in the end zone. Jahan Dotson, 59 saps, 41 routes run, both behind Terry McLaurin, but you'd expect that at this point. But leading the team in targets with 8 targets and got into the end zone. It's a great sign for him if he's getting those deep ball targets that Sam Howell loves to throw. Usually it's Terry down the sideline, which is why he's had a pretty decent season. Nothing crazy as far as his side, but he's still just a solid plug and play guy. It's going to get you not a super high ceiling, but he's got a high floor. He's going to get you at least 10 every single week. He's a double digit machine. So let me go ahead and pull him up here, actually. We're going to pull up Howell. And let's see. Howell was 17.7. He is rostered in only 64.5% of leagues. It's a great streamer. I can't put him in the waiver wire pickups yet or at all because he's over 50%. But a great streamer still available in 35% of the leagues, a little over 35% of the leagues. QB6 on the year without the Monday night game, averaging 17.6 points a game. This week he had 325, a tutty a pick, and 27 rushing yards. It's great. he's a super solid quarterback for the rest of the way. I think he's almost plug and play at this point. Definitely got to play some matchups if you have two quarterbacks available that are worthwhile. But if you're quarterback needy, Sam Howell seems to be able to fill the role. As far as what Dotson did here, Dotson outscoring Terry McLaurin 16.9 to 12 without a touchdown. Obviously, Terry will outscore him. So Terry on the day, 5 for 73, 14 yards per catch there, and 4 for 69 for Dotson, and the touchdown on 8 targets. That's a really promising time. Curtis Samuel is hurt. He was out on the game, so something to watch as you go forward. Jahan Dotson, definitely playable, it looks like, without Curtis Samuel in the lineup, without Curtis Samuel taking snaps there from him or taking routes run, whatever it is. Definitely a positive boost for Jahan Dotson through the rest of the time Curtis Samuel can't play. And there's one guy I want to touch on here. Finally, Ramondre breaks a big run. Love to see it. Ramondre fantasy owners rejoice from that. It's been a tough year. He's been okay. He hasn't been exactly what we've expected him at his draft point, in the third round or so. I expected him to dominate the backfield snaps. I took him in a couple leagues myself, and Zeke's playing a bigger role than I expected. So it's tough to see, but finally got a big run out of him. But that's not the guy I want to talk about over in New England. Kendrick Bourne out for the season. New wide receiver one there. Nothing to worry about from Jalen Reagor on the other side. He has absolute stone hands. So I wouldn't that doesn't worry me. He did have the second most routes run for wide receivers on the team. But the main guy in New England, Demario Douglas, 53 snaps, 38 routes run, leading the wide receiver group, 7 targets, also leading the wide receiver group. And he looks to be the guy filling in for Kendrick Bourne. And Kendrick Bourne was a good fantasy player the last few weeks. So a guy that's going to find his way onto my top 5 waiver wire pickups. We'll get into that a little bit deeper here. And just keep your eye on Demario Douglas. He looks to be taking over the wide receiver one spot in New England. Not the most valuable offense to have, but wide receiver ones with the volume are usually pretty solid flex plays to wide receiver two, and a guy that you can get off waivers right now. So we're going to look into that a little later on as well. Jalen Reagor was the closest to him, like I said, and he just is not. He doesn't have it, right? Joey goes off the Himothy method. I'm going to play that right now. He's got the good analytics to show that he's got potential fantasy relevance, but he does not have it. And I would not look to pick him up by any means unless you're extremely needy at the wide receiver spot. But I think there's other ways to go. So Jahan Dotson upgrade with Curtis Samuel out, and Demario Douglas looks to be a promising young guy to pick up here. So Taysom Hill against the Bears, 11 carries, 52 yards, 4 catches, 13 yards, and a touchdown. I believe he had a passing touchdown as well. Yeah, that's right. You can play this guy at tight end. It's insane. He runs, he passes, he catches balls. He's the value is just insane. There's not much. He was in my top 10 just because of that. Top 10 rankings from Saturday's edition on the podcast. And it's unbelievable that you can play this guy at tight end. This tight end position is so weak in and week out. Dalton Schultz was tight end 1 this week. It doesn't make any sense, that position. Play the guy who's got random volume everywhere. He runs the ball, he catches, he throws the ball. He is number 2 on my waiver wire pickups this week. And he is only rostered in, let me get it really quick. On ESPN, he's only rostered in 39% of leagues. This guy's been running the football the past 3 weeks. What is everybody doing? Pick him up. He's got to have, unless you have Kelsey, Hawkinson, Andrews, like one of those guys, Taysom Hill can be right there with any of them. And even those guys, you could argue you could play Taysom Hill over because he does so many different things. So Taysom Hill, really promising day yesterday. And Olave finally had a good breakout, not a breakout game, but had a good game. He's continuing to lead the team in snaps, the wide receiver position at snaps, route runs, and targets. Gotta hope it clicks here sooner or later. One of Joey's buy low guys from last week, actually. I wasn't buying it because I thought Rashid Shaheed had better chemistry there with Derek Carr, but hopefully Chris Olave can get something going off of this bigger game that he's had. So One more guy, actually, I want to talk about through Sunday here. Jonathan Taylor, absolutely taking over the backfield finally. They paid him the money. I felt like it was only a matter of time until he started taking all those snaps from Zach Moss, and we finally saw it this week. Almost 75% of the snaps this week. It has been a 50-50 pretty much since he's been back, and he dominated touches as well. So on this one here, we have Jonathan Taylor at 45 snaps to Zach Moss's 13, 21 routes 1 to 3, 5 targets to 0, and 18 carries to 7. You knew it was going to happen, but Zach Moss had been so good. You almost question a little bit, but he's too talented and he's got the big contract now. They have to play him. So, Jonathan Taylor, if you took the gamble on him in the 6th or 7th, wondering if he was even going to play this year, congratulations. It's finally come. He's definitely a guy that can give you a boost through the rest of the season, arguably into RB1 territory, probably gets there. And the talent is too good. Minshew at quarterback, and that's better than AR-15 in my eyes because Minshew's not really going to run in for touchdowns that AR was. So he's going to leave him to Taylor. Probably Zach Moss is still going to snake a couple of those touchdowns throughout the rest of the season, but plug and play JT, and still probably one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable handcuff in all fantasy football is Zach Moss because he proved he was RB4 without JT in the lineup. So keep Zach Moss if you have him. You never know what's going to happen. Those ankle injuries always like to flare up on these running backs. But great to see Jonathan Taylor finally taking control of the backfield for fantasy purposes. Yeah, so that's all I got on Sunday's slate. There's definitely a few things here that I continue to go over, but I don't want to bore you too bad here with that. I want to get kind of into the waiver wire pickups for the weekends. A couple of these guys I had touchdown already. But this one I have not. So probably the number one waiver wire pickup for most people what is going to be this guy, and it's Keaton Mitchell of the Ravens. So I'm going to pull it up here, and it's super misleading because his snaps were not nearly to what Justice Hill were. Justice Hill dominated the snaps. But in that defense, Justice Hill had 17 and 19 snaps in the fourth quarter while Tyler Huntley was playing. And Keaton Mitchell had 0. So absolutely great performance out of him. Let me look up on the day of what it was exactly here. So Keaton Mitchell, out of nowhere. So started the season here's the story really quick. Started the season on IR, finally got back week 6, played only special teams. Week 7, started to get some play time around, and this is the most predominant play time he's had and finally broke a big one here. So I have a hard time trusting the running backs in Baltimore because they love just rotating those guys. They have Edwards, they have Hill, they now have Keaton Mitchell. And Lamar is going to take a lot of carries and even score some touchdowns. So it appears Gus Edwards has the goal line carries pretty set. He is absolutely enormous. So that does make sense. But Keaton Mitchell, 20.4 PPR points on the day, 1% roster. I mean, why would you have him rostered? He hasn't played at all. Could be a breakout. And on the day, 9 for 138, a tutty and 1 catch. You don't expect many catches in the backfield in Baltimore. They love to run the football. And the reason I have him at 1, I guess, is because like that's a very good offense. And if he can take over that backfield, it's unbelievably valuable. So he tied Gus Edwards in snaps, only 14, and had 3 routes run, 1 target, and 9 carries. More carries than Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards controlled the goal line as expected. And only 4 less carries than Justice Hill, even being outsnapped due to the fourth quarter differential in the blowout game. So Keaton Mitchell clearly didn't dominate the backfield, but seemed to dominate the touches in the middle of the game when you would expect it to be a close game throughout the rest of the way, throughout most of the games in the NFL here. It looks like Keaton Mitchell could be a pretty significant pickup, especially if he's as good of a runner as he is, or as he looked yesterday. So Keaton Mitchell, my number 1, highlighting the top waiver wire pickups for me. Number 2, I talked about him earlier. I just don't understand how he's under 50% roster with the tight end position being so bad. Taysom Hill. He does everything. It doesn't need any more explanation. I talked about it before. He catches the ball, he runs the ball, he passes for touchdowns. It's unbelievable. So looking into the number 3 guy on my waiver wire pick, I don't know why I keep doing that. So looking into the number 3 guy on my waiver wire pickup, it's gonna be a guy that's just come off the IR, and I continue to talk about how weak the tight end position is. And this is a guy that's gonna get his routes, he's gonna get his snaps. Pat Fryermuth, he's coming off the IR, he's down to 40% rostered in leagues, and it doesn't make sense because, I mean, I guess most guys have IR spots, a lot of big injuries this week or this season, and but he's a guy that's gonna get his. And in in Pittsburgh, things may be turning around in there. They had a good week this week, finally put up like 20 points. It's not an explosive offense. He's not going to be too high upside, but he's going to be a safe bet. He's been good. He's a good player throughout his career. And I just continue to hammer how bad the tight end position is. If you can find anything that's pretty consistent, he's going to be part of that. So, number 3, I have Pat Fryermuth. Nothing crazy there, but the guy coming off IR looks to be an easy pickup. You probably don't even have to use your waiver spot on him. You can just add him on Wednesday when it finally comes to that. People are going to forget about it. But you're going to know because you're turning it into crossover athlete insights, right? That's why you're here, because you need fantasy help. And usually Joey's here to help me with it. But it is just me for today. But we got you covered still, no matter what. Number 4 on the list, the guy I talked about earlier, Zach Charbonnet. You have to pick him up. He's a super valuable handcuff. And in tough games, he may have fantasy relevance. He dominates the 2 minutes. He plays every third down snap. And he's got the PPR value because of that. I know it didn't show this last week, but they were just outmatched all game long. And that's not going to happen every week. The Ravens defense is matchup proof at this point. They're just unbelievable. So, Zach Charbonnet, though, number 4 on my list, just because of that, the PPR value in the handcuff ability at that spot. They run the football a lot when they're up. And if anything happens to Walker, you have arguably a low end RB1 back on your side. Probably definitely low end RB1 because he's going to catch more passes than Walker ever did. And lastly on the list, number 5, Demario Douglas, turning into wide receiver 1 in New England. No big feat because it's New England's offense, but a guy that's going to get the targets in New England. Kendrick Bourne had a great performance throughout the year. And if he can take part of that role, he's got fantasy relevance. And he's a guy who's not rostered in many leagues at all. So Demario Douglas rounding out my top 5. There are definitely other guys that you could argue about being on this list. And that's just where I'm at, though. Demario Douglas, I'm going to take him at the 5 spot to finish it off. So all these guys, great performances this past week, really besides Charbonnet and Fryermuth. Fryermuth coming out the IR, like I mentioned. But Charbonnet, one of the more valuable handcuffs that you could find at this point. So into the next section, I'm going to give you 3 buy lows that I have here. So 3 buy lows I have coming in, and then we're going to kind of wrap this thing up. It's going to be a little bit of a quicker one than usual. We're not getting Joey's input. Not that it's always the best. No, I'm kidding. He's great. But we miss him. I miss him. It's not going to be the same without it. But here we are. We got to deliver everything for you guys every single week, Tuesday, Saturday, just like we say it every single podcast. One of the buy lows this week. Number 1, I'm going to go with Davante Adams. I am not giving up on him yet. They were up all game. They ran the ball a lot. Josh Jacobs dominated that game from start to finish, 26 carries, 98 yards, and 2 tutties. Great day out of him. Love to see it for fantasy managers, Josh Jacobs fantasy managers all over. And O'Connell looks like he gave a little spark to that offense to those players. They seem to rally behind him and love it. Somebody different than Jimmy G. Apparently, he lost that locker room, and there's no getting it back if you know the football scene. So I'm going buy low number 1, Davante Adams. I cannot give up on him yet. At this point, those teams that had Davante, they drafted him first round, second round, late first, early second if you're lucky, probably late first in general, though. And they're probably struggling right now. They need to make a move to find a push to the playoffs. Sell them somebody they need. Sell them a valuable running back that you have. Go get a 1 to help push yourself over the top. He's going to come. He's Davante Adams. He's too talented not to. And Aiden O'Connell looks like to be slinging the ball a lot better than Jimmy G ever did. Like I mentioned last Saturday's podcast, Aiden O'Connell with the game before, Davante Adams with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, 20 points, in the last time they played together. This was a different game, mainly due to the script. Josh Jacobs dominated 26 carries. Um, Devontae Adams, though, leading the team in snaps at 53 and routes run at 24. They only ran 60 plays in the whole thing, so he didn't play 7 snaps, and he only didn't run one route on a pass play. So he's going to be there. He had 7 targets on 24 routes run. He's going to be there. I promise you. Go do what you can to get Devontae. This is the cheapest you're ever going to get him in his career, probably, until he's just old and gray. Devontae Adams, buy low number 1 for me. So into number 2 here, another guy that has been slowly teetering off here. Only do teeter off in terms of rushing production, really. And I'd put him in the buy low. Joey'd argue this probably. But DeAndre Swift just has not been as good as he was when he first started. Jalen Hurts has taken every single rushing touchdown. Gainwell starting to get some goal line carries. And DeAndre Swift has not been as efficient of a runner as he usually is. I think he had like 18 carries for 43 yards. Let me double check that really quick. But he started out running like averaging like 6 yards a carry in the first 2, like 4 in the next 2, 3 in the next 2. And then in this one, um, 18 for 43 and 2.4. 2 catches still for 31 yards. He's too talented. It's going to come. He's going to break one. He's going to have his big games. Jalen's still going to take the touchdowns no matter what. But we're talking about RB5 on the year, RB5 after Sunday, averaging 14.5 points per game. I put him in the low end RB1 category because he's getting so much volume. And at this point, he's getting 18 touches in a game as big as the Cowboys Eagles. He is the lead back, regardless of Kenneth Walker taking a couple red zone carries away from him. He's the guy. They're going to come. Let's just look at the past couple weeks here. So he started out red hot 27, 15, 18, 17, 17, 8, down to 10, 5, 14 because of the tutty, and under 10 for the first time since he started. If you can get him, if somebody's willing to trade him, I'd find a way to get him on the team. The team that team wins, and they win games. They get ahead. He's going to run the ball and he's going to score touchdowns eventually. So DeAndre Swift, buy low, number 2 for myself. Now let's see here. Buy low, number 3. A guy that I just cannot wrap my head around how he is not getting touches. I don't get it. Number 3 from Atlanta, Bijan Robinson. So talented. I'm a big talent guy. You look at the beginning of his season, and he was lights out. He was catching balls. He was scoring touchdowns. He makes so many people miss. And Arthur Smith just doesn't use it. I don't get it. They waste these picks on guys like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan just to not use them. It makes no sense. Makes no sense. They deserve to lose that game giving him 11 touches, 11 carries, and using Algier so much. Anyways, 0.3, 12.2, salvage that day because of a touchdown last week, and 5.9. 3 straight weeks. Hasn't amassed over 13 points since week 4. I'm saying buy low on Bijan. Too talented of a guy. And the beginning was just too good to not see it happen again. Change at quarterback. Heineke's better than Ritter. Bijan, buy low, number 3 for me. The RB spot is so valuable when you get a guy that's as talented as him, and he's going to play. He's going to play. It's going to come. I just don't understand what's going on. Maybe Arthur Smith is mad at him because he didn't play when he was not feeling well week 7 against Tampa Bay. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But a guy that consistently averages over 4 yards a carry, he catches balls out of the backfield, he makes guys miss. Buy low, Bijan. These are all guys, all players on teams that probably aren't doing great, maybe besides DeAndre because he was a pretty late round pickup. But these other two, Devontae and Bijan, were high first round picks. And guys that have not performed to the standards, which means the teams have probably not performed to the standards. And it's crunch time in the season. Those teams have to make moves to get into the playoffs. And if you can get a guy like Devontae or a guy like Bijan off of one of those teams to solidify your roster, if you're in a scenario to do that, to solidify your roster for the playoffs, then by all means, go out and do it. They're too talented. They were first round picks for a reason, and I refuse to believe that they're not going to hang through, especially Devontae. Devontae has all the metric for it to be there. I actually want to pull up the snap count for Bijan really quick because I know Algier was taking a lot uh, through the past couple weeks. Yeah, so here we go. Bijan, 42 snaps to Algier's 24. Although out carried by one, ran 14 more routes. Same amount of targets, but 14 more routes and almost 20 more snaps and under 10 fantasy points for the second time in 3 weeks. Buy low, Bijan Robinson. Do what you can. Put your fantasy team in a position to dominate playoffs if you can go get him for something. That's going to do it, actually. We're going to. This is Tuesday's edition. So we got you some waiver wire pickups and some buy lows for the coming week. A little bit shorter than usual. No, Joey. I just wanted to bring you guys some content, something to give you something for you to feed off of going into Tuesday for the waiver wires, and just continue to push something for you guys to listen to. We appreciate all of you guys tuning in, wherever you may be from far and wide. Tuesday, Thursday, Crossover Athlete Insights podcast. For today, I am your host, Joshua Shapiro. Joey, we miss you. Have a good time in France and continue to listen in if you guys want to improve the rest of the way for your fantasy season, whether it be betting, rest of season, full season fantasy, or DFS. We are here for you every single Tuesday, Thursday. Please hit that subscribe, hit that follow button. We are everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok, of course. Please, everything helps. Like, comment, subscribe. Tuesday, Thursday, Crossover Athlete Insights. We'll see you next time.